What's up everyone, Kevin Benny back again. If you saw my last video, I demoed a few mouthpieces. I demoed the Berg Larsen 90/1, the 100/1, and then my trusty 120/1 mouthpiece. And I said in my next video, I'm going to talk about, am I going to switch to a new mouthpiece or am I going to stick with the 120/1? I finally made up my mind on what piece I'm going to use, so I will let you know my decision by the end of this video. But first, I want to talk about why I ended up demoing new equipment. A couple videos back I talked about when you should look for new equipment, so I thought I'd talk about my experience and why I kind of went down the path to look for new equipment. So this video is going to be kind of off the cuff. I'm going to just do my best to talk about, in words, my concept of sound and like the feeling of how I want to play. And it's definitely difficult for myself to put these concepts into words because they're very abstract. They're maybe in shapes or colors or I don't know. It's hard. So I'll do my best here. So it started off with me experimenting with stiffer reeds. I do a lot of playing with like DJs and electronic instruments, and I play hard. I play hard, a lot of air, push it through the instrument, and I was finding I was pushing my reed strength higher and higher. I got up to 3.5, the 3.5 strong Rigotti jazz reed, and I really was liking what was happening. One thing that I was doing, it was adding a lot of the high range to my horn. Altissimo was a lot easier, and they were just lasting longer over these gigs. So I thought, let me see what happens if I go to a 4 light Rigotti gold reed. And I tried it out, and at first I was like, oh, this is great. I'm getting even more to the top end of my horn. Altissimo is way easier. They're lasting longer, even longer through multiple gigs. And I was pretty satisfied with that. But as I got more into the 4.5 lights, and I played them in different genres, specifically acoustic settings, it was just really hard to tame the instrument, specifically with my diaphragm muscle. I mean, you're playing on stiffer reeds, you gotta use more air. When trying to keep the intonation, centered, especially in a top range, lipping down, I was finding a lot of pressure was happening in my lungs and my oral cavity, which was creating this nasally sound, which I do not prefer. So I knew something had to change. But the thing is that I really liked the 4 light reeds. They were giving me this quality that was giving me a real nice fluidity into the altissimo register. Plus, the feeling that I was getting with the 4 lights, I really liked. It was a certain type of tightness. It was accenting the higher harmonics of the sound that gets this tighter feeling. I don't really know how else to say it. Just like more in control of my instrument type of thing. I'm not saying my embouchure was tighter or I'm playing with like a tight embouchure. It's just, again, this feeling of like a nice tight, like I got like spandex on or something. I don't know how else to explain it. Okay, so that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna need to find a new mouthpiece that's gonna fit these 4 lights a little better. And the easiest way I would think has worked before is getting a smaller tip opening mouthpiece, because a smaller tip opening, in theory, usually will let you use stiffer reeds with the same amount of effort than, say, a softer reed on a large tip opening mouthpiece, if that makes sense. So going back to my one video where I talked about when you should buy new equipment, I talk a lot about like there should be like one thing you're looking for. Try to like bring it down to one thing you're looking for in your new equipment. My one thing this time was I'm trying to find a piece that is gonna make the 4 light reeds not as difficult to play on. Of course, without changing my tone too much. That's the thing. I was trying to keep my sound pretty much the same because I'm using the same mouthpiece, just getting a smaller tip opening. So I ordered the 90/1 Berg Larsen and the 100/1 Berg Larsen to compare with my 120/1 Berg Larsen. I got 2 of each because there's some inconsistencies that can happen with any one mouthpiece, so I wanted to kind of just make sure I was checking that. Right off the bat, both the 100/1 mouthpieces I just didn't like. Possibility that they both were duds, I don't know, but it could just be that style facing that just doesn't work for me. The 90/1, I had one that had a really nice vibe to it, and I was like, this might be the one I'm switching to. So I took it to a few gigs. I was able to actually record myself at some of these gigs on my phone and like A/B them with my 120 Berg Larsen. But now this is gonna be my final answer. When it came to like my air and the diaphragm and the pressure, it didn't make anything easier, honestly. I mean, you gotta think a size 4 reed is a really stiff reed. Not many saxophonists play on it. I thought maybe I could get into this reed and really make it work with a different mouthpiece, but it didn't give it to me. You know, it just, that's it. So that it was as simple as that. I returned all the mouthpieces, and now I'm sticking with the 120 Berg Larsen. Mainly, I stick with the 120 over 1 Berg Larsen because it's the sound. I mean, the 90 over 1 was great, and even without the hardness in playing, even if I played on a softer reed, I just don't really prefer the subtle change in the sound that the smaller tip opening mouthpiece does for me. I prefer the bigger tip opening because just how I play, it feels more proficient throughout the entire range. It gives me more dynamic range, and I have a lot of flexibility with the tone. I could do a lot of certain nuances that I can't with a smaller tip opening mouthpiece. So that's the final decision. I'm sticking with the 120 over 1 Berg Larsen. With that all said and done, I'm now in the search for a new type of reed. Basically, I'm looking for a reed that's not going to be overly resistant, but gives me this sort of tight feeling and fluidity into the altissimo register. Basically what happened was the 4 light Rigatti jazz reeds, I started playing on them, and there was characteristics I liked about them, and it started to change my concept of my sound. It started to make me develop new sensations. I mean, I say this tight feeling, which is basically what I feel kind of an accent to the upper mids of the tone. And I used to just not prefer that at all. But again, my concept has changed. So now I'm looking for a reed that's gonna accent that part of the sound. And I think I do know what reed I'm gonna switch to because I've done so much research, you can call it, with trying like every reed under the sun. I have written down notes and mental notes of what the characteristics of all these reeds do. And since I'm pretty sure of my concept now, I'm pretty sure what reed I'm gonna switch to. But I'll talk about that in another video because I probably exhausted you. I've exhausted myself. I've been all over the place in this video. I did my best to explain what I'm dealing with here. I think it's really good for players to hear, beginners, intermediates, to hear about this from someone who's been through it a lot. So again, hopefully it helps. If you liked it, definitely give me a thumbs up. Be sure to check out some of my other content if you're just stumbling upon this video. Be sure, of course, to subscribe to the little bubble right there. And if you want, I give you free tips and tricks right to your inbox. If you just click the link in the description below. I send them out when I send a video out to give you a little more in-depth of the video, and I try to get them out on a weekly basis, even if I don't post a video. Definitely check that out. Again, thank you everybody, and stay inspired.